Hello everyone. Today's topic is concept of variance analysis. We'll see the concept of variance analysis. Now we'll see what is variance and what is variance analysis. Now when we say variance is the difference between the standard cost and the actual cost. Whenever there is standard cost is made, we have to compare it with actual cost. And if there is any kind of difference, then it is known as variance. So that is clear enough. Now what is variance analysis? Now variance analysis means the measurement of this deviation. Now what is deviation? Deviation means any kind of difference between the actual and the standard. When we try to measure this deviation, these variances, then we call it as variance analysis. Now we have to always compare the actual behavior with the standard behavior, or the actual cost with the standard cost. Now why these differences is to be there in the management? It is because of some kind of differences. Maybe in the market the price was fluctuating and the standard set was different. Okay, for in this kind of differences, then if this type of differences is there, then there is a requirement to investigate the actual with the standard cost. Now whenever there is variance, then it can be favorable or unfavorable. Now when we say favorable and unfavorable, if the actual cost is less than the standard cost, then it is known as favorable variance. Okay, whenever the actual cost is less, how much you are actually spending is less than the standard cost, then it is always favorable for the management. And if the actual cost is more than the standard cost, then the variance is called as unfavorable, or we can call it as adverse. Okay, so we have to be very careful with these terms. Okay, favorable and unfavorable. If actual cost is less than the standard cost, the variance is called favorable, and if the actual cost is more than the standard cost, the variance is called unfavorable or adverse. Now when this favorable and unfavorable variance is there, if it is favorable, that means it is a sign that the business is efficient, the business is working properly. And if it is unfavorable, that means the business is, or the organization is inefficient, they are not working properly for achieving the goal of the organization. So what is variance analysis? Variance analysis is an investigation or to find out why the actual costs are fluctuating as compared with the standard set by the organization. So analysis means to check it or investigate. Okay. And what is variance? Variance means the difference between the actual cost and the standard set by the organization. Next is variance may be classified under the below mentioned heads. Now different type of variances can be there. Now some variances can be controlled, some variance can be uncontrollable. When we say controllable variance are those which can be controlled by the organization. Suppose the price are increased or decreased, then it can be controlled. But if there are changes in some government restrictions or some changes in the environment, if it is there, it is uncontrollable, right? So in case of variances can be sometimes controllable and sometimes it can be uncontrollable. Now variances can be classified under the two heads actually. Now under this I have given four variances, that is material variance, labor variance, overhead variance and sales variance. Now in order to understand this categorize wise, it can be classified into two categories. Okay, now first category will be material, labor and overhead. These three, okay, material variance, labor variance and overhead variance, these three will be a part of cost variances. Okay, and this sales variance is a part of sales variance. So when we say variance may be classified, it can be classified into two categories, that is cost variance and sales variance. And in cost variance, we have material variance, labor variance and overhead variance. These three are the elements of cost, right? Material, labor and overhead. So these are belonging to cost variances. And this is sales variance. This is different variance compared. This is not belonging to cost. Okay, this is only for sales. But labor, material, and overheads are part of cost. So that's why this is known as the cost variances, and sales variance is different. This is categorized into two parts. Now, when we say material variance, now under this material variance, labor variance, overhead variance, there are different parts. Okay, it has been there are different parts for all these variances. But first of all, we'll see what are the variances under these variances. There is two things, that is I have told you cost variance and sales variance, right? Under the cost variance we have material, labor and overhead, or we can say direct material, direct labor and overheads. But overheads we will not say it as direct. Okay, so under this material variance can be again divided into two parts, that is price variance and users variance. Direct labor variance can be again divided into two parts, that is price variance and efficiency variance. And overhead variance can be divided into two parts, again variable overhead and fixed overhead. So we'll see in detail all these parts of categories of variance. First we'll see the material variance. Now what is material variance? Material variance is related with the raw materials which are purchased by the organization. Now this arises from the difference between actual cost of material and the standard cost of material. Whatever the material's cost has been set, predetermined cost, that is the standard cost of material only. We are not talking about any labor, we are not talking about any overheads. Okay, we are concentrating mainly on the materials. So whatever the material cost, standard cost was set by the organization, and how much actual cost was there in the market for those materials. When there is a difference between that standard cost of material and actual cost of material, that is known as material variance. Now material variance can be again divided into two parts. I told you, material users variance and the price variance. Users variance is also known as quantity variance. Okay, quantity variance or price variance. Now under this quantity variance or users variance, we have another two parts, that is mix variance and yield variance, or yield variance is also known as material sub users variance. So this division of material cost variances will be shown to show the difference between the actual cost of materials and the standard cost of materials. Now what is this users variance and price variance? We'll see. First we'll see the cost variance. So in this you can see here material cost variance, right? Material cost variance is divided into users and prices. So what is material cost variance? Material cost variance formula is actual quantity into actual price. Now quantity, whatever the actual, you have to always see the actual and the standard. Okay, in this chapter we are always talking about actual and standard. So whenever we are finding out the actual cost, okay, it have to be with the actual quantity into the actual price minus standard quantity into standard price. So the comparison will always be between the standard and the actual. Now when we say actual AQ is actual quantity, AP is actual price, standard quantity for actual output, that is SQ, SP is standard price. The material cost variance is the difference between the standard cost of material and the actual cost of material. Now we have to multiply this with the prices. The actual quantity will be multiplied with actual price and the standard quantity will be multiplied with standard price, and then the difference will be minused. Okay, when we see the minusing figure, then we'll get the material cost variance. Next is under the material cost variance, first one we have material users variance, right, or else quantity variance. Now material users variance will be material quantity variance equal to actual quantity minus the standard quantity into standard price. Now whenever you are seeing this formula, whenever you are seeing this quantity is given, so in the actual and the standard quantity only it will be minus, okay, and multiply with the standard price. When we see here it is as price, let's say material price variance, then what it will be, material price variance, the difference between actual price and standard price will be there multiplied with standard quantity. So the formula becomes opposites, okay, when we are trying to use this material users variance. Now under this material users variance, it is favorable when the total actual quantity of direct material used is less than the total standard allowed for the actual output. Now what does it mean? Actual quantity, whenever the actual quantity is less, if it is less than the standard, then it is favorable for the company, and if it is the quantity is used more than the standard set by the organization, then it is unfavorable. So you have to keep in mind what is favorable and what is unfavorable. In this case, if you are using the quantity, if you are actually using more quantity than the standard quantity, then it becomes unfavorable, and if actual quantity is used is less than the standard quantity, then it becomes favorable for the company. Next is material price variance. Now material price variance will be denoted for the price of the materials. Okay, now when we see the formula, you can see price variance, right? So whenever you see here price variance, that means you have to minus the actual price with the standard price and multiply with the actual quantity, how much quantity has been actually utilized by the organization. So price means actual price minus the standard price multiply with actual quantity. Now in this case, when it will become favorable and when it become unfavorable. Now material price variance, it will become unfavorable if you are paying more. Actually you are paying more for the raw materials than the standard set by the organization, then it will be unfavorable. If the price you are paying less than the standard set, then it will become favorable. So in whatever case, you have to check it whether the actual price you have paid is more compared to the standard price, then it will become unfavorable. And if the actual price paid is less than the standard price, then it will become favorable. So these were all the parts of material cost variance. Material cost variance is material users variance and price variance. And under material users variance, another two parts we are having, that is a mix variance and the yield variance, which we'll be learning while we are solving certain kind of problems.